Hey guys, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and welcome to the review of the movie Wonka. But before we actually start talking about the movie, I brought those chocolates for reviews. Yeah, because around there is a great place with hot chocolate, and they produce some other chocolate too that's really good, and I really love their chocolate. And for example, look, they have this chocolate in the shape of a Nintendo controller, literally. You might not believe it, but this literally is chocolate in the shape of a Nintendo controller. I love it so much. And also, from the same place, chocolate in shape of an old style key. And if there is any doubt, those two things are chocolate. See? Chocolate, although it doesn't look so good now. But those things later are going back in the fridge. But let's now actually talk about Wonka. First, I will say that when I first heard of this movie, I thought that, that might be interesting. The origin story for Wonka. I mean, we sort of got it already, the Tim Burton's version. And I always thought that that was actually one of the good things about the movie, because I always found Willy Wonka's backstory in the Tim Burton movie pretty interesting, and I really liked it. And so when I heard of this movie, I thought that that might be interesting. And then after I started hearing more about the marketing of this movie and seeing more of it, that's when I thought, this probably won't be particularly good. And then I heard it was by the same director that did both Paddington movies. And I really love Paddington movies. They are so like those good, feel-good family movies. Yeah, I really love both Paddington and Paddington 2. And it's really hard to describe what's so good about those movies. They're like pretty simple family movies, they seem on a first glance. But I don't know, there's just this weird charm to them that makes you just love and appreciate them so much. They have just so much heart. And again, it's hard to say what's so charming about it. That just something is. So when I heard it was done by the same director that did Paddington movies, that actually made me far more hopeful for the movie. And then I saw the second trailer, which I thought was actually better than the first. So, what did I think of Wonka? I'm surprised, but I actually thought the movie was quite good. I think it was a quite good, feel-good family movie. Nowhere near as good as the Paddington movies, but then again, those are, I consider, some of the best family movies ever. But I really thought Wonka was pretty good in its own right, and I actually think it's far better than many modern family movies, actually. First though, I will address one thing. The original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's book, as well as both movies, the Gene Wilder version and the Johnny Depp version, or Tim Burton version, whatever you want to call it, but both the original book and both movies are actually pretty dark for a supposedly family story. Like what happens to the naughty kids and all that. Yeah, that's some pretty dark, creepy stuff, honestly. So if you want something like that, then this is most certainly not a movie for you. Because this movie doesn't really have any of the... I mean, it does have a little bit, but very tiny bit of the original darkness of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory story. This is pretty much a feel-good family movie in the style of the Paddington movies. They're just simply set in the Willy Wonka universe. For me, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because after all, it's a different story. It's not supposed to be a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory story. It's supposed to be like a prequel, so it wasn't a big deal for me, but understand if some people might not like the movie because of that. And now, for the actual movie, I have to say, I really like the story, the characters, like the main character is of course young Willy Wonka, played by Timothée Chalamet, who I think is actually doing a pretty good job as Willy Wonka. Like for the past Willy Wonkas, the Gene Wilder one and the Johnny Depp one, I always thought Johnny Depp was pretty underrated. I never thought he was actually that bad as Willy Wonka. I always thought he's done a pretty good job actually, but he could never really hold a candle to Gene Wilder. Like Gene Wilder is still very much the best Willy Wonka. Although it's pretty obvious that Timothée Chalamet was very much supposed to be inspired by the Gene Wilder version. Like when you watch this movie, it's pretty obvious how much they try to distance themselves from the from the Johnny Depp Tim Burton movie, because before that you probably were hearing that clearly this movie will take inspirations from both, but I cannot really agree with that. This is very much not the case in my opinion. For me, it's quite clear that this movie uses a lot of inspiration from the Gene Wilder version, but at the same time, it's very much trying to distance itself from the Tim Burton movie. Like the backstory of Willy Wonka is completely different from the backstory in the Tim Burton movie. Like even his father, a dentist, Wilbur Wonka, is completely removed. So yeah, it's entirely obvious that it's an entirely new story. And not going to lie, I was a little bit sad that they didn't even use elements of the backstory, because I kind of always liked that backstory of Willy Wonka and the Tim Burton movie. But oh well, I accept that this is a new movie in a new continuity. Because I'm not going to lie, this backstory was also pretty good actually, and I really enjoyed it. And overall, besides Willy Wonka and Timothée Chalamet doing a good job, I thought other characters were also pretty interesting. Like for example, there is this friend of his, Noodles, who I initially thought she could be annoying actually, or like one of those characters that just feels kind of pointless and annoying, but no, I thought she was a pretty good character and I really liked her friendship dynamic with Willy Wonka. I thought Noodles was actually a very well done character and I was surprised that I ended up liking Noodles. But yeah, I thought she was a really good, well done character. And also, we do find out some twists related to her later in the movie, which I also thought was good. And another thing I liked in the movie is the Oompa Loompas. Yeah, the CGI was a little bit obvious for that. I very much think that modern CGI doesn't look particularly good, and this movie is another example of that. But other than the fact that I wasn't a huge fan of the CGI Oompa Loompas, I thought they were also pretty well done. Like there's this one Oompa Loompa character who I also thought was a good character with his own character arc, and I liked that the song from the Gene Wilder version returned, like Oompa Loompa Doom to Deem Doom. Yeah, I was really happy about the return of this really good song. And another thing I'll talk about of the movie is the villains. I've seen some attack on the movie that the villains feel so lame and not intimidating. But again, oh well, I don't think the villains in the Paddington movies were particularly intimidating either. Like, there is like a trio of main villains in this movie, and I thought they very much reminded me of the villains from the Paddington movies. In fact, I'm going to say they were somewhat more intimidating than the villain of the second Paddington movie. Like, kind of on the same level as the main villain of the first Paddington movie. And I thought, yeah, they were very funny, no doubt about it. But I thought they were pretty well done villains and very well fit for the movie. And the final thing I'll talk about in this movie is that I actually ended up liking most of the songs, which is certainly more than enough than I can say for most family musicals, where I don't even remember almost any of the songs. But in this movie, I actually ended up liking most of the songs. I thought they were catchy and fun to listen to. So yeah, they might not necessarily be the best songs I've heard in musicals, but then again, considering how most modern kids musicals don't really have good and catchy songs, this is certainly a plus, the songs in this movie. Overall, I really enjoyed Wonka, and I thought it was actually a pretty good movie. The best way I think I can describe it is as I just said. Imagine both Paddington movies basically set up in a universe of Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, whatever. But the movie certainly had the charm of both of the Paddington movies, and while it certainly didn't have much darkness and creepiness of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, that's okay. It was still a very good, feel-good family movie that I really had good time with pretty likable characters, and Timothée Chalamet doing a good job as Willy Wonka. So I'm actually giving thumbs up to Wonka movie. I really enjoyed the movie, even if it's nowhere near as good as both Paddington movies. So here are my thoughts on Wonka. And press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!